Alright. So a while ago, when we got the Chieftain rework, I said it was going to be dog shit for melee. There was like no good idea to play melee, and that was back when it was more of like a melee strike meta, bone shatter meta, there's a few other things. Slams were not in season. They weren't in season in Bench League, they weren't in season over here. Like, some people played them, and you'd see someone get to like level 80 and then work out that their build sucks. That was also before we got transfigured gems, and now we have a big nerf to melee strike starters in the fact that you can't put Ancestral Cry on left click. That's it. It doesn't kill the archetype, but my god does it make it more tough to level, because you have to get Call to Arms to automate it, which is another Siosa gem, or you have to self-cast it, which is going to feel bad. So that nerf, the Chieftain rework, and trans gems have all come together for this build in this league. This is the league for Volcanic Fissure of snaking. I believe this. I said this about Shield Crush, and then no one played my Shield Crush build. It was a good build. I did really good stuff on that Shield Crush build. This is the best melee build for the upcoming Necropolis League, and I will put money on that, because this is going to be a mapping league. It's not going to be the best bossing build. I don't think the best bossing build's going to be melee, because we know how Ruthless works. We're not getting any more movement skills. And if you want to tackle the new tier 17 content, I would recommend not league starting with a bosser. Get some cool stuff for a bosser, make a bosser later. Go about that. You know. But this build for a mapping focused league, as I've put here, all of the value we get from Necropolis gravecrafting packs and stuff is about our ability to deal with packs in maps. It's not like Affliction, where Wildwood Wisps are going to be empowering our bosses sometimes. Affliction, when you had to have a very balanced build, you needed clear, you needed bossing, to get the most out of the mechanic, and you could go one way or the other. People were MF blasting and stuff, but you wanted something that could do it all, because you missed out. You left a lot of money on the table if you weren't able to kill those empowered bosses. This league is different. And let's go into some questions. Why are we playing Chieftain then? Because I said Chieftain melee, bad idea. Because always with melee, I always used to go over here, we take precise technique, and we're not doing that this time. Oh my god, what the fuck is that? We always used to take precise technique, 40% more damage, and then you take like accuracy, you get Jug's accuracy node, and then you'd have like the equivalent of like a skill gem and a bit or whatever, to get you through the axe as melee. And you'd have kind of smooth leveling. You'd go from like ground slam into sunder, and then you pick up your bone shatter or whatever other skill you're getting in act 3 to start using, and it would work out. And Juggernaut was amazing in Ruthless because of your ability to invest mostly in defense on your ascendancy and a lot on your tree, and then you'd still deal pretty damn good damage. So yeah, Bone Shatter Juggernaut, very well played. Strike Chieftain was a meme though. These nodes didn't have enough value because this has a 1 second cooldown, and this would give you Ancestral Call. Funnily enough, this does kind of solve another potential issue with strike builds, that it's harder to use Ancestral Cry now, but it's not worth a whole Ascendancy node, Jesus. And the rest of it's not good enough. For slams, however, because we are slamming, for Warcries, with the new Call to Arms gem, we've lost the keystone. It now sucks. We're not taking it. Well, it has a use probably in some other way, but the new gem is going to automate our Warcries. And judging by the demonstration video, everyone seems to be disagreeing about this, but those with eyes can see that the character in the demonstration video had a Warcry trigger, but then multiple effects triggered from different Warcries. They had the effect of Enduring Cry, they had the effect, I think, of Intimidating. There was Infernal Cry in there for sure, it's on their hotbar. They had other Warcries as well. They had multiple stuff going on at the same time. So our Call to Arms gem should be triggering all Warcries at the same time. This is very exciting for slam builds, because the worst thing with slam builds is like, well, I have to stand here and yell at you for a second before I can do my big hit. And this is someone's power fantasy, but it's not efficient, especially if you want to have better damage while mapping on a build that doesn't focus on doing bosses anyway. So, you know, what's the point? So we play Chieftain for two things. One, this synergizes very well with slams. It does work on strikes, but much better on slams. Unless there's some kind of weird Ignite strike build I haven't data mine the value of it. Yeah, you get this every second this is available, and he's gonna double the effect of your slam. This is crazy when you're leveling. You take this node first. I used to take this gave some attack speed, and this at the same time, and that together was like 40, and then like a bit more damage because you get all the bonus attack speed, so maybe 45 to 50% more damage out of the gate. While this one node with a slower slam skill, like, you know, using it roughly every second, is about 80% more damage when you're leveling, and the value very slowly goes down. Sure. Oh, it's actually become unticked again. Let me just retick this. Loves to just untick itself. I don't know why. There we go. And yeah, this one node gives you so much damage out of the gate when you clear normal lab. And the great thing about Volcanic Fissure, the regular version, it's good enough damage to clear normal lab very comfortably on a 1-link anyway. But then you get this, and then you just shred. You just shred from that point on. That makes it easier to take this if you want to for resistance from second lab, or you can just go straight in on damage if you feel comfortable in resistances. No more O for the Magi. We have to play the game now. And then, yeah, then you have this other branch here where it's like, okay, we're going to be unaffected by Ignite, so that's also one degen that's annoying. It makes us more delve ready if we want to go about that. This is a pretty good delve build because of the auto aiming, like, you know, you're going in a straight line, and your volcanic fissures are going to be erupting in front of you. I'll go over the mechanics of the skill if you're not familiar in a second. Tessalio gives us that modifiers to fire resistance also apply to cold and lightning at half their value. I said earlier as well, I didn't think this was that valuable in Ruthless because suffix pressure here. Suffix pressure isn't as big. We can't exploit open suffixes with crafting bench. We can slam them maybe with an exalted orb if we find one, but we don't have a bench, so I didn't think, oh, it's not that good. But in theory, this is going to make it much easier to get chaos res on your gear, to get attributes wherever you want them. It actually does a way more than I'm given it credit for. Now I thought more about it, so hands up there. That's on me for recommending against that. This is going to be like taking over the Magi for the res part at least, so we're stealing that. And then you take this last, and we'll talk about what we're doing with like max res later on, because there's some shenanigans to explore there. And yeah, why are we playing Volcanic Fissure or snaking? Well, regular Volcanic Fissure, you slam the ground, you're aiming it, it's like a ranged ability, but it's a slam, so you slam in front of you, which does damage, then it travels in a thing that does damage, then it explodes, which does damage, and then projectiles fly out of the thing, which do damage. This is fine, this works well for leveling, but it's not the skill we want to invest in entirely. That skill is Volcanic Fissure of Snaking. Now, Volcanic Fissure of Snaking is all about exploding the entire screen around you. It's going to cause no projectiles to fly out, but multiple eruptions. It's free, it's 3 additional times, it's 2, yeah. It erupts 3 additional times at level 20 quality, so it's like 2 eruptions, so 3 eruptions in total at normal quality. Then you get the 20 quality, it's 4 eruptions in total. This is on a 5-link currently, like, you know, eyeball the DPS. Did I just lose Tawhoa again? Why does he anything I do drops this off the full I don't understand why. But this is what you might be wondering, why am I pressing 2? He's cheating, he's adding them down. I can just keep pressing this forever. And just, no. Well, we do 2 because against a boss, against a single target, which is kind of where this damage is maybe important. For that note as well, maybe we just turn off onslaught for now as well, and frenzy charges to make this a slightly more realistic. Look, it's still good. So single target damage needs to get measured based on the multiple hits we can get with the skill, because it doesn't just hit once. It doesn't hit every eruption on the same target, but if you look at there's a clip. Let me Captain Lance talking about this. If you find his YouTube video talking about this, he'll talk about it. There's some other videos lying around. I don't have my own demonstration I've prepared here, but other people already have one, so I just point to them to cite what they're doing. This skill basically will hit at least 2 times against a single target, and you can make it hit 3 yourself by aiming like behind the target. You position yourself like they're hitting you, and then you aim behind it, and you're going to hit like 3 times, which is really important for our DPS, because if we drop that, you know, it doesn't look good. And this is one of the things that scared me off this skill at first. I tried PoEing this, and I was like, well, I can't get it over 1 million. That sucks. This will be even lower if I drop the Tawhoa's Chosen lower, right? It's not good, but realistically our DPS should look like this, as long as we're actually playing with our brain while we're fighting a boss. And this is going to be enough. The important thing about this is, like, you want enough DPS for bosses. This isn't a bossing skill build. Our focus is primarily on making our mapping as smooth as possible, because in Ruthless you spend much more time in maps than you spend fighting bosses anyway, until you get to the end game. You can specialize your farming routines or whatever, or if you're, investing in certain different mechanics. Have they put call to arms in yet? I doubt they have the gem info. Oh, lag? No. Cool, we're gonna take that off then. This is call to arms, by the way. Before you get confused, I will update the POB as soon as they put the gem information in. We'll talk about WARCRIES in a second. So the Volcanic Fissure of snaking, that's the mechanic we're using with that. So we can hit things multiple times. That's where we get our DPS from. That's why there's 2 times as cheating. Because this is the thing, we hit 3 times with Volcanic Fissure. Our friend Tawhoa is only going to hit as many as 2, which should be the default against single target, because he's going to use the same skill as us, but he's not going to aim it. He has no brain. He is a Mirage Chieftain that exists purely within our mind. So, leveling this skill is the best part of it, I would say. I did a full practice run, basically. I mean, I haven't I've got to like Act 9 by the time of recording this, but the damage is Katava ready already, so it's just a matter of not having enough time before wanting to make this guide. The leveling for this build is so smooth. You take Volcanic Fissure when you're about to fight Merveil. You'll discover that the skill already does pretty decent damage on its own. The normal version, you can use that as long as you want to, technically, but it's smoother once you get Volcanic Fissure of snaking, because of the auto aim. You can just start slamming and running around, and you stop having to think most of the time once you've got that. And the damage is exceptional. The damage is exceptional because we can take this is exceptional. It's crazy when we're on a 1-link compared to all other options. And I didn't even have like good weapon RNG with my practice run. I got a couple of decent weapons with like a good fizz roll here and there, a bit of fire there. I think in Act 9 now I have a pretty decent weapon overall, but my DPS is overkill. I don't need to kill things as fast as I can kill them, so it's fine. And also, with this league being a league dedicated to crafting, going to be grave crafting, there's a good chance you might be able to get better weapons as you go, as long as you're able to invest your corpses into weapons. You could choose to invest them into other places, but you get some corpses that say like increase weight to fizz modifiers, weapon, get better weapons. You might be able to get something good. So that's very important. Going into this build, we've got 10 little leveling trees here. These are kind of rough. You can kind of deviate a bit sometimes, but the early ones are more important. You always take the life, because otherwise we die to rowers in mudflats. This is really important. People make this mistake all the time. People will do this because I need more life. You just took fuck tons of life. But they'll say like, oh, I need more life because life is important, and Reddit told me to take life. And yes, you'll take this, but this is more important early. This gives you accuracy. The little nodes as well give you a chunk of accuracy that you will need, otherwise you are missing so many of your attacks, and this is so important for early DPS. This is like, you lose so much DPS by not having this hit. I mean, look at this shit, for instance. Like, let's say we're automatically level 15, and let's say we go back, take it back a bit, and what we will find is like, when we're getting to here, like, good grief, hang on, okay, I need to change, okay, no, normal enemy. Well, our hit chance is 100%, but if we start going up here, it should... No, it doesn't go down. In practice, it always goes down. You can read your tooltip. I don't know what's improving our hit chance here, but in practice, it should always go down. And something else is fudging with something else around here. Let's put that back into here. Because we're going to take Resolute Technique, we take it later. And some people will be like, oh, if you take Resolute Technique, there's no point taking accuracy nodes, but you need them early because you don't have Resolute Technique. We'll take this like at the end of Act 2. That's a lot of time, especially in Ruthless time, to not have accuracy. And you're going to find that like, oh, half my attacks are missing. If half your attacks are missing, you're doing half the damage you could be dealing. So it's worth taking these. These are DPS nodes. We drop them later, but they are DPS nodes. They're important. And then going into Act 2, we go up here. And we can take magmatic strikes to give us that like 30% Fizz's extra fire, which is a lot of Fizz's extra fire. I'm averaging that out here because the notable doesn't do anything on its own unless you tick this, but then it gives you the full effect of magmatic strikes, which is unhelpful. So actually, what we really want. Oh, I know what was doing it. This has accuracy, and this has accuracy. That's why. I could strip it. You know what's up. Where were we? Yeah, magmatic strikes is giving you that burst of damage for 4 seconds out of every 10 seconds, but it's a big chunk of damage for 4 seconds out of every 10 seconds. We also want to go here to convert our fizz to fire straight away, just because that gives us more damage. Because you can do that here as well. You can actually take that here if you want to, but either works. But this is like an extra point, and then I mean you could take this. The thing with this is like there's another mastery here that's really powerful, but you have to be able to ignite, and it's going to be very hard to get a chance to ignite with anything until you get flammability in Act 3. So this isn't really worth taking early, even though it says like look 22% more damage. This is insane. We'll cover this later in Act 3 when we can get flammability, but otherwise it's not that good. And you could just take something else here. You could take Avatar of Fire technically, but I like to just take this mastery here instead. But yeah, we could just go like, we don't have fire exposure yet. You could get the, again, we're not burning if we're not igniting. We're not igniting. We're not getting uncapped fire resistance. So this is kind of the point why it's like we might as well just take this instead of taking the keystone. Anyway, then we go all the way here, get some more life, go Resolute Technique. And Resolute Technique is just going to solve our accuracy problem otherwise, right? And this is the interesting thing about this build, because every other time I've done a melee build, I've said go Precise Technique, because you can just, the accuracy's right there, and but it is a bunch of points you have to invest in accuracy, especially since they nerfed Juggernaut's node way back, so it doesn't give flat accuracy, like a chunk of it anymore. I remember saying Resolute Technique never really made much sense on a lot of builds, but on this build, it makes total sense. It's GG if you're on this side. Going into Act 3, we can start taking lots of damage nodes, because unless you really fear for your life, you can start taking life as well along the way, here and there. I don't usually take this in the final build, but it's not a bad node. I don't take this either, but if you're playing hardcore, you might want the early life regen. It can matter. And I would take both this and this. This takes you to like level 36, so you're kind of a bit over leveling here. I would prioritize. It's up to you what exactly to prioritize, really. You can take the axe stuff first and then get the rage mastery first, but you're going to get Warlord's Mark around Act 3, so you're going to get rage from that, and most bosses have some form of ads you can get rage off with that, so it doesn't really, this doesn't matter as much early as it might look. This is the big one though, because it's 100% increased damage as long as you ignite, and we're going to ignite because we're going to get flammability. It's Preciosa gem, grab it, grab the curse. If you're a masochist, you could mule it. Doesn't really help you though, because you have 3 uncarved gems, and we're going to use all 3 of them pretty comfortably. I wouldn't waste the time spending 2 to 3 hours on a mule just for flammability. You also get Lava Lash, which is an insane node itself. And I would leave this here. This is an interesting node. You can take this if you find again you want a bit more survivability. You could take this earlier. It's going to make you stun things a lot more often. But that's really good as a survivability layer when you're running around, until you run into like a blue pack that says can't be stunned, which then eats your face off, as I have experienced. When we're going into Act 4, I'd start taking some of this life, because Act 4 is a very boss heavy act. So I just start taking this, and I take this, and you take all these 3 and then spend one of your free respecs as well. So we start sorting out our life, and we get a mastery there, which is cool. Going into Act 5, it's a res check with Innocence. If you don't have good fire / lightning res, I think it does more fire than lightning, but both are important. You want res, or you're not going to be able to, you're going to get chunked by everything, and it gets into quite a messy fight. I would take Diamond Skin around then. You can take it earlier if you're having worse issues, but I tend to not find that. I tend to find this more valuable. Like pushing damage earlier is better, and then in Act 5. again, if you are a hardcore player looking at this for ideas, obviously you're saying like, oh, I'm just taking that straight away. Sure. We go down here to get Wrecking Ball. It's a great node. It doesn't look like it gives an amazing amount of damage, but the stun duration's valuable, and the attack speed is essential for the way this build is going to be scaling up in the end game, due to the weapon we're using, which we'll talk about later. I'm going to say the words "we'll talk about that later" a lot of times, because I'm going to try to remember how to keep a form of structure in this video. Going into Act 6, we take Hatchet Master. This gives us Onslaught when we're running around, which is really helpful. I'd also take Unwavering Stance around this, around towards like going into Act 7, because damage is going to start amping up a bit and you're going to get stunned by a lot of shit. And going into Act 7 again, you can just go down here. There's other options as well. Around the time you're getting into Act 6, you're going to have your Warcry set up, your dual Warcry set up at least online, so you could take Deep Breaths for that. But I don't think it's as important early. I will take it later. I like getting the movement speed from this, attack speed from this. We don't care about the accuracy. Again, here we don't care about the melee strike range, but some regen and damage is cool. And this might look very good. We just take a bit of stuff here, but it's all very valuable. Going into Act 8, what we used to do as well, we used to take this. The crazy thing about this build is I planned all this out before Call to Arms was announced. I looked at Call to Arms and I was like, this seems naff, where's my left mouse button thing if I want to use it? I was planning to self-cast my Warcries, not thinking about the amazing amount of buttons I'd have to justify in this build to use all my Warcries individually. Then I worked out that we can put them all together on the same thing, and wow, we don't need to take this anymore, which is great. But we can go down here, we take the Measured Fury, very good node for exerted attacks. Because we're playing a bit of a slower, not like slow, but a slower attacking build, we can benefit a lot more from synergizing with exerted attacks, which is fun. We can also take this at this time as well. It's a bit more life there. Go into Act 9 again. More bosses. A General Adus will kick your ass if you don't get your lightning res up. You may want to just grab Tessalio or that, because you can DPS him down slower, but you'll get. He has no good sense of area of effect around. You don't know when you're going to be hit, and you'll be hit by the full force of it. Anyway, it sucks. Get more life and armor. He does physical damage as well. Armor's good as well. One thing I've learned from not being a Juggernaut is the value of this node. I'm going to miss it. And we're going to get a lot of max res to help with a lot of like slowdown things coming from Chill, but it doesn't help with other things otherwise, like Maim and stuff as well. So losing this sucks. I never care enough about it until I take it when I'm league starting, and I'm like, oh my god. But we'll get by. Then going into Act 10, we start filling out, again, Act 10, we're preparing for maps and Merc Lamp, and for Merc Lamp I always take full bleed immunity, just because traps, plus if Izaro rolls fonts, he can inflict a really big bleed if you get Curse of Vulnerability, and that will just kill you. And there's a good chance you won't have your life flask up, because it's a bit of a longer fight doing Merc Lamp usually. So that's a good way to lose some time if you're getting to the end of Merc Lab and then you get merked in Merc Lab by bleed. So I get the immunity, and it's just good. You can combo with Corrupted Blood, and now you don't have to run a flask for these. It's a nice investment of points because it's like just defensive stuff. We can drop this later when we're more comfortable like using a flask and whatnot. And that's the Act 10 tree, and then we go into later on. You see, I'm already kind of dropping this stuff. Without Determination, or we can get some auras in this build, but we don't have Determination yet, so we're not grabbing all this reservation effect that's going to let us put Determination in. Determination, I'd say, is pretty important to get later on for this build, even though we're not like scaling trauma or anything. It's going to massively increase our armor. This figure isn't accurate because I'm not using like the Ruthless version of the gem because it's not in PoE, but it gives a lot of armor, and I would run it. And there are other options too, and you could just stick with a node. I haven't put this tree here just as a stopgap, but you could explore options of just not running that many auras and changing how the build works in that way. But I'm planning to run it just because it's the most defense I can get possible on the character, and every time I die otherwise I'm going to be blaming the fact I'm not building more defense. But yeah, we go up here anyway. We can go up here and we start taking things like Berserking for more attack speed and Rage, which also gives more attack speed. You can get this mastery. I love this mastery. Not many people I see actually take it. You'll see there it says 1% DPS because I'm calculating for just one enemy, at least in the config. But what this basically lets us do, especially for a bit of a slower weapon, is magnify the speed at which we can get an important attack off if we're starting to get mobbed. If we're getting a bit overwhelmed, if we have a lot of enemies in close range, like right at like whacking us. Also, if we're consecrated pathing into a pack, we're going to attack faster, which is good. That's just going to make everything smoother. This is like 1 point very worthwhile. Take Constitution up here, and yeah, that's the no determination setup. Otherwise, really, I take Concussive Force over here, take Deep Breaths up here, can invest in this. Just bear in mind, the more you decrease your Warcry cooldown recovery, the more it's going to cost you. You have to sustain the cost. We're going to life tap it. This build life taps the fuck out of everything in its endgame version, but obviously it takes a bit of time to get all those life tap gems. Oh, we also take Cannibalistic Rides on this. I forgot I even put this. This is a decent. It doesn't give that much DPS, but it gives you 2% of life on kill, which is pretty nice. You can move this anywhere else, though. You can keep the bleed immunity if you want to. Don't take any of these trees as gospel, aside from like the earlier one when I'm like, take the fucking accuracy here at first, take Resolute Technique, but there's loads of things you can swap and change. Like, plug it in yourself, see if you can find, I've poured over it for a while, but like, you notice I'm not taking Fortify here as well. You can take this early. You can just like path to this early, make sure you have Fortify to help your leveling, to help you die less to hits, and then when you get Fortified support, drop it. If you're SSF, that might take a while. If you're trade, it's like common enough. You will see how common gems drop this league, because they were boosted massively by the Wildwood last league. The full build changes up a few things. We get into the reservation notes here. We do this. What is this? Level 89. I mean, like, I can justify taking this then. In the full build, we take Battle Rouse for just the mastery here. It's 3 points for a mastery, but it's like really important. And we take all this stuff as well. Not a crazy amount of changes from each tree to each tree, because I don't like, you know, having to rely on finding new respec points. I don't like planning around that. There's an end game version that's like just a couple of changes. Oh, that shouldn't be there. Why is that? What the fuck? Just a couple of changes in the end game build. You'll see it's just like, how many respecs? 1 refund. Yeah, basically I'm literally just changing this in the endgame version and accounting for some tattoos we're adding, because we're gonna get tattoos. We'll talk about the relevance of this one in a second as well. That's the leveling trees for the build. I hope everything kind of makes sense in that. If you have never played a Warcry slam build before, you get big stinky hits and you plan around the big stinky hits. You're not trying to attack 500 times a second if you're building around Warcries, but you're also not trying to attack like once every 2 seconds. You want to, you know, this looks fine. But this is also with all our rage and stuff, and also with our end game gear. Everything here has been like measured around that. We'll talk skills now quickly. This is on a 5 link. I put Fortify here because I did the math, and I'd rather run Fortify and take this off and take something like Deep Breaths, like, you know, like stuff like that, rather than run a DPS gem and have to take Fortify on tree and then not take Deep Breaths. I keep clicking things by accident. Look at this. Okay. But yeah, this is on a 5 link. This is like your DPS on a 5 link. This is your... And Tawhoa is chosen, has disappeared again. It keeps going. Yeah, this is like the endgame version of the build. I've dropped something else accidentally from the build as well somewhere. I don't know where, but like I'm doing less damage than I was when I started recording. Keeps happening. Oh yeah, because I dropped onslaught and like frenzy charges and shit. That's like, this matters to measure because like this is like a DPS versus rares often will be like up to here, and then our DPS versus pinnacle bosses goes down if we don't have onslaught and whatever, so on and so forth. So we have our 5 link, get a 6 link when you can, but for this build, getting 2 5 links is more important than getting a 6 link, I would say, which might sound funny. Why are we getting 2 5 links? Because this is Call to Arms, and we're going to link 3 Warcries to it. And this works, as long as they weren't lying in the video. I will cry if I record this whole thing and then I find out like, oh, they were lying to us in the video, which that would royally suck. But I don't think that's going to be the case at all, given what we know, given what we've seen, given what other people are saying and theory crafting about it. We should be triggering all 3 of these Warcries at once. And they're not necessarily super cheap. They're going to get double this value, and that's going to be every 3 to 4 seconds, depending on your cooldown. So it's a chunk of your life you're eating out to do those WARCRIES, but we're not gonna not like if you don't, you know, they cost too much mana. That's our whole pool, and then we don't have the mana to do anything else like use. Warlord's Mark here, for instance, is not linked to life tap. We're not going to link that to life tap. There we go. There we go. Even though it's linked in here, but like you can link that separately. This is not a 6 link. It's like a 5 link with an extra socket. You want to get a 6 socket weapon, your Count's Primacy. Talk about that in a second. Why we use? Oh, he's building around uniques again. Get him. He's Ruthless player. You can't be. No, we'll talk about that in a sec. Warlord's Mark were for rage generation. Very easy to use on this build because often you can just mark something and then one of your Volcanic Fissures will just hit it automatically for you in the process of you marking stuff, which is really nice. Otherwise, our main cursor gets single targets this Flammability, get that chance to ignite. We have a Vile Ancestral War Chief. We have not enabled. See, I'm not trying to PoB warrior this DPS too much. We like to have this stuff as well because again our mana pool is too tight. If you take off the life tap of that, you're looking at it's only 30 mana for the Ancestral War Chief, which you could justify. It's just about the links available because you've got like it's easy to get at 4 links, so you might as well life tap it for quality of life. And then Flammability costs 24. Now we don't have any mana leech. We have life leech, but we're not going to get mana leech. So this mana regen's enough to sustain us like casting Warlord's Mark occasionally and maybe using like Consecrated Path occasionally. And that's kind of the idea of it all. But we use our mana as a resource, and we bear in mind that we only have 30 regen in the final build. Before you get all your auras, you use a mana flask, then you don't have to worry about any of this. But when you get all your auras together, that's the strategy, and it'll be fine. There are a few other ways to go about it though. You can tinker, you get more, there might be a way you can get some flat regen for mana to make things easier from like something, I don't know. This is not a 6 link here, this is a 4 link, but there's other options here for you to tinker around with. So like Herald of Ash is a very good for both DPS and clear, but you can become more defensive by running Arctic Armor instead. This will give you freeze immunity. And before you get Determination, if you want to get the full preservation going anyway, you can use Anger. It doesn't give a crazy amount of DPS for how much it costs. That's partly because so much of our DPS comes from having Fizz as extra fire. But Pride makes everything take increased physical damage, so we can't get like just flat Fizz to magnify like that, so yeah. Then in our gloves we have Self-Cast Molten Shell Blood Rage. You could automate these instead of using faster attacks, but I don't see the need to automate when Self-Cast Molten Shell in this build is probably going to be better for being reactive against bullshit. Self-casting Blood Rage is a bit of a pain. You can level this a bit more if you have the dex for it. And then, yeah, Consecrated Path is another question about this build because you are a bit of a slower attacking build. Even with faster attacks, you might find that the attack speed of it isn't fun enough for you to use, and you might just drop it entirely. You have 2 free sockets if you do. I plan on using it just because I love it so much. My beloved skill, Consecrated Path, for movement, for teleporting over gaps and stuff. It's just, I just love it. So I plan on using that. We move to items now. I just have 2 setups here. One of them is like just as a Moko combo, just to like check another unique combo I was playing around with from like common uniques. I plan to play Ruthless Trade, so I like building around common uniques. This is not a common unique. This is like the end game gear. Before I publish this, I might make like a different, like a little setup of like what, you know, basic gear. But a lot of it's really self-explanatory. I mean, it's in the notes, and so much of it is just self-explanatory. What you're supposed to be doing with your gear, because you know every piece, if it's not a unique piece, it's just like life, fire res, and then like chaos res and attributes and armor on the pieces that get armor. You know, it's not rocket science. Weapon progression, you just want the biggest stick you can get until you can get a Count's Primacy, and then Count's Primacy is going to be your bitch for the rest of the game probably, because this axe is insane. This axe gives Culling Strike on its own. This axe, you might look at the stats and think, well, it only has 400 DPS and it has a slow attack speed, but the physical damage as extra fire per rage is really, really, really good. Even if we only have 65 rage, like let's put this down to an Immortal Flesh for like make us more defensive. even with 65 rage, that's like 65% fizz as extra fire permanently while we have 65 rage, which is another point about this build not being as strong for bosses, because you have to ramp that rage, and if you die you lose it all, if you portal you lose it. So you know, it's not about that, it's about the mapping and stuff. And often you come into the map boss with all the rage, so you're just having to deal with rage loss, but you're taking... Oh, what did I just change? Oh, I just changed it to a Sinvictor's Medal. How did I do that? Because you're taking this wheel, you get a bit of 40% slower rage loss, which is nice, which is really nice, which means briefer invulnerability windows of bosses won't affect you as much. But if you, when you get to doing pinnacles and the you know, the Eater of Worlds is like inescapable doom and makes you run around the place for a while, you're going to lose your rage. This build also, it doesn't run Berserk currently. Did I lose Tawhoa again? No, I didn't. I've lost something though. Oh yeah, I took off Bear's Girdle. This... Where was I got distracted by the fact I took off Bear's Girdle. Anyway. The other uniques I think that are really important with this build are Dawnstrider, because we don't have space to run multiple totems. Again, you could make space by dropping Consecrated Power faster attacks. You have space earlier as well. Before you get all your auras, that's the space you have, and then you get your auras and you want to get Dawnstrider. Again, if you're SSF, obviously solve this differently. You're not guaranteed to drop these when you kill Exarch, but lots of people kill Exarch in Ruthless every league, and these are never too expensive because people don't really care about melee enough to make them expensive. For Amulet, there's lots of choices. I think Replica Karuri Ward is one of the best for everything it gives. We don't care about the accuracy. Great, who cares? We get Dex, we get Intelligence, we get Movement Speed, really nice, really premium, and we get Area Effect and Area Damage. Why is my movement speed so slower? Interesting. I don't know why it says 37% down there. That's weird. No idea. PoE is messing with me at the moment. PoB. The area of effect is really welcome because we don't invest too much in it otherwise. This is like a big mace build that does big area effect, but we get like 4 eruptions use of Volcanic Fissure of Snaking, and then on top of that we have Tawhoa's Chosen slamming alongside us, so things are blowing up around us pretty steadily, and we get a bit of increased area effect from some other sources. We could use sand stands if you want to do that, or you know, where's the gets the skill naturally has 50% more, and you can get a bit from your helmet enchant. You get a bunch from pulverize as well, and we're using Seismic Cry obviously in the final build. We don't take this early on, we don't need it early on, but we'll get it later when we can get that life tap Call to Arms 5 link going. Bit of a later thing. It's going to make everything a lot smoother when you can get that as well. And area effect and area damage, just a bit of damage, movement speed, area effect, just like this amulet is just good stuff for a slam build. For rings, amethyst rings are going to be the go-to. These are like some pretty GG rings I've slapped in here just because I can for now, but just to make the build look better, I guess. But you just get whatever you can get here. And you're also able to use a Circle of Anguish if you're using Herald of Ash, if you can find one. There's some really cool things you can get on these. You can get some max fire res here. Let's talk about max fire res before I forget about it. This is our normal armor. Oh, this is our normal armor. This is our armor with implicits. With these implicits, and with... We're taking the Ozophil, 10% effect on you. You should be able, you get your max res to like 89, 90. But even without this, here's the really cool thing. Let's take this back. Let's say we're on 85, okay? The new Ruby Flask, which has a shorter duration in Ruthless than that, but not that, it's like 6 to 7 seconds, which is enough. This is like a second guard skill for you, because this is going to give you plus 5% to max fire res, which with your Ascendancy gives you plus 5% to all res. So look at that elemental max hit just go up massively from that. And you can automate this. You can put it on a use charges when full, or you can use it manually as a second panic button. You can use it alongside Molten Shell. You can space it out apart from Molten Shell. You know, there's a real good potential for this build to tank really big elemental hits with Molten Shell self-cast active plus the Ruby Flask. The cool thing is though, once we can get this, you'll notice that the mods I'm looking for here are the unique enemy mods. Greater Ichors and Embers aren't that uncommon to get in the end game. You'll farm them up, and you want to farm them to get this. You get 2 max fire rares and then Purity of Fire effect to get a further 2 from Purity of Fire. Then we're just like missing 1% max res somewhere, and I'm sure I got this to 90 before. There's a bunch of different ways to do it. You can get it from like a Circle of Anguish, for instance, but that's only if one of those like drops. So if not, then this is laggy. There are a few other sources as well to do that with. Your glove implicits, by the way, I would get more rage on hit when you can. Just because it helps you ramp your damage faster versus bosses. Because big warning about this: when we lose our rage, we do like half the damage. So we really want to ramp that. We want to keep that, and this is why this build doesn't run Berserk. I think maybe that's what I said earlier when I got distracted. This build does not run Berserk. I don't think you run Berserk in this build because you want to keep your rage for Count's Primacy. You could grab Berserk as a quest reward, sure. Do that, use that for a while, but once you have this axe, you want to keep your rage forever. We don't even care about the game 1 rage on crit hit with this weapon. It's such a good weapon. Let me exemplify something. If I put a Ziri's Disfavor with the massive amount of fizz damage, the raw fizz, and the APS of this weapon being higher, it actually when we have Bear's Girdle, at least it's like a DPS downgrade. This is a very late game thing. That this is going to be very hard to farm for. We'll put like Immortal Flesh here instead. And then change this back to Count's Primacy, and you'll see that like it's about the same DPS, but this includes culling, so it's slightly more DPS, but slightly more DPS on one of the rarest axes in the game compared to Count's Primacy. Wow, this axe is crazy. The only big downside of it is it's really slow APS. It's 1.05. That's pretty bad. We can mitigate that somewhat by using our rage for attack speed and by getting relevant attack speed on the tree and get it up to a reasonable speed, and that helps synergize with our WARCRIES, because Intimidating Cry gives us it's free. It says 2, it's free because we take this, and because we take this, we take this, and when we're taking this, our cooldown goes down to 3.2. Oh, this is on the end. You can get tattoos to further reduce it. Let's go to like full build instead. It's like 3.5 without the tattoos, without any tattoos. 3.5, and that's going to line up pretty well, because this is the build where we just stand there and just slam, because obviously we've got to move around, we've got to dodge things, we've got to position and reposition a bit, which does if it hit our effective bossing DPS a little bit, but no more than any other melee build that was always relying on positioning and on whatnot, and you know. The great thing is, like, even if we're not far away from the enemy, we can do 2 hits of Volcanic Fissure of Snaking rather than 3, which still does respectable damage. But yeah, because we're spacing out our attacks a bit, we're going to line up those 3 exerted attacks, so we almost all of our attacks are dealing double damage. Almost all of them, genuinely, when we're playing like that, and maybe like, you know, at least half of them are if we're just like slam. So it's a pretty good setup, all things considered. I like it. But Jewel, you can put whatever you want here. This is a great place to solve attributes further, and stuff like that. Other amulet options include that you can get like Zoth's Blood, gives you Avatar of Fire for free. This has more damage potentially, and you get to cover enemies in ash for free as well, rather than using Infernal Cry, but we have Infernal Cry anyway, which gives you the option of maybe dropping Infernal Cry if you run this. Tinker around with it if you want, but you have to farm this for quite a while, and you have to do Breach, and Breach did get a quality of life update, which is cool, but it's also Breach, and Breach is kind of sucky in Ruthless otherwise. It takes forever. You can farm a whole Breach Stone, run it, and the boss can drop nothing now, which sucks. You get the Area of Effect, which I don't like. You can anoint Area of Effect if you want to. There's also, there's the combo with like Moko's Embrace and Eye of Innocence as well, where you can make yourself ignitable, you can make stuff ignite yourself, you get 30% increased attack and cast speed. Even the cast speed is relevant. because of your cursing stuff manually, so that's relevant. And you'll see this is a lot more damage actually, because you get that 60% increased damage while ignited. The take 100 fire damage doesn't matter because it's like 10 damage because of our res. And this gives Leech for free. And that's a great segue. Oh, let me just, okay, I'm not gonna chase. The great segue to talk about a big thing about this build, which is Leech. There is a node down here that gives you Leech. It's like 4 points to get to it, and there's nothing else around here that's really appealing unless we're playing like a mace, or you want to get the entire Vitality Void for no fucking reason, or you want to start pretending you have suppression, or you want to increase onslaught effect for no fucking reason. It's a lot of points either way, and we can't spare them, so we're not going here. And this also does nothing. This is like damage over time. This is on full life, which we're not doing because we're life tabbing stuff. So we ignore this stuff. We're not going over here. We're not doing that. So how do I get life and mana leech? Well, one of the first things you'll do is you anoint Clever Thief. Where is it? That's deep breaths. Anyway, you anoint Clever Thief on your amulet. Whichever amulet, the good amulet you have early on, doesn't have to be an endgame one, but anoint Clever Thief, which is all the way up here. Oh my god, cancel. Clever Thief gives you just raw, any attack damage, leeches life and mana, which is going to solve your life and mana issues on Leech. You don't have to run a mana flash with that. But then you're not going to want to run that forever. You want to run a better anoint later on. And when you do, god damn it, when I was just about to hit record on this, I got a ping on Discord, on the Ruthless Discord, with someone telling me the item filter information was out. Before the item filter information was out, I had a whole section in these notes talking about Leech and talking about the Doriani's belt. I'm going to take this away. We'll update this in a sec. I'll take out that line as well. There was a whole section here saying like, oh, you need to get Doriani's invitation. That's your best in slot belt, which is going to be really rough because this build can't really kill out Zeri because you're gonna hit the reflect clone because of how the skill works. Which was like, that's a real bum note about the build. This sucks. You know what would be really cool if we could get blood drinker. This, which gives attack damage leeches life. You wouldn't believe how hard it is to get fire damage leeches life without these kind of things. Like, you'd have to use uniques, or you have to anoint a thing, or Jesus Christ. But all we need to do is get one of those tattoos to drop. And then we have Leech. We have solved life leech. And we don't care about mana leech, because, yeah, fuck mana leech. And... oh, we got more mana regen all of a sudden. I wonder why. Oh, because we're running Immortal Flesh. Well, that's a good case for Immortal Flesh, you know. You can run Immortal Flesh on this build, if you want to. It's less damage, but it's good defense. Bear's Girdle is a Harvest boss exclusive drop, last I checked, which makes it quite hard to get in Ruthless. But you can live search for it when you have a bunch of money later on. It's a very, very good upgrade. Let's also talk for a sec. Why are we not playing Berserker if we're scaling Rage? Why is he saying this is a Rage build? Why does he play Berserker? Because Berserker is not an ascendancy in Ruthless. If you see someone play it, they're delusional. It doesn't exist. You can ignore this. You can get a big circle on your screen. Just blot this out. Just pretend it's not there. Like, no one takes this either, really. Jesus Christ! What the fuck? What the? Oh, that's the that's the Flesh and Flame one, isn't it? Jesus. Yeah, no, it's just because you'll look at this and be like, oh, we can get more rage on hit, which, okay, that's good for bosses, I guess, but we get rage easily while mapping, and this is not a bossing build, so it doesn't change things that much. Then Rite of Ruin, we have to mitigate the downside of having a massive amount of life loss per rage, which scales up massively. If we're scaling to 65, maybe into 85 rage of Bear's Girdle, that's a lot of life we're losing per second. And we only get double effect rather than triple. So you'll see there it's like a 20% DPS node. That's cool. But part of the rage effect we're getting doubled is attack speed, which has diminishing effects because it's desyncing us from our WARCRIES a bit more. And the movement speed is welcome. But you'll see these nodes here, like this, Fist of War is giving us area of effect and a good amount of damage. And Tawhoa's is giving us a massive amount of damage. With what he's providing. So this line here just doesn't do much, and the rest of the ascendancy sucks. It just sucks. This is about critical strikes. No one can play critical strikes in Ruthless. It sucks. Warbringer sucks, aside from exerting one more attack, but we don't really care about that because it's a whole fucking ascendancy we have to take it. Aspect of Carnage sucks because we have to take more damage. That sucks. And Defy Pain isn't even a node, really, because we're not armor stacking on a fucking Berserker. If we're armor stacking, we would be playing Juggernaut, and we have to. It's so bad. It boggles my brain how they haven't. I wish they would buff Berserker into something playable. There is no real reason to play this as a melee character in Ruthless unless you have some weird kind of Death Wish, which maybe is the point of the ascendancy. But yes, we really want to get this max res going. We want to get the slam base going. The Chieftain is just the way for this build. That's a note on Rage, anyway. Brief note on configs. You probably looked at this while I was bouncing over. This is here for the mastery. PoB for endurance. We can PoB as well for frenzies while we're mapping. We're using Blood Rage. I can't see a way to get frenzies comfortably in this build while bossing. If you figure one out, very well done. Damage can go very well when we're... Oh, we lost Tawhoa again. He's gone again! If you notice why he's gone, let me know. I don't know why he just drops off the full DPS calculation constantly. So yeah, while running around and mapping, our DPS is going to get pretty fucking comfy. And this is like, we're not using Berserker tool to pad this occasionally. This is just raw... You know, everything's exploding around us. Damage, our hit DPS is pretty nice, so we get good stuns. We can use that alongside concussive strikes to get even better stuns and, you know, stun blue packs and shit comfortably, which is a good defensive layer. We got Fortify, we got our life tap going because our damage just, you know, drops off about it because we're using a life tap support on the main skill. Another thing you could do for this build is like if you don't care about fizz damage reduction as much for some weird reason, you can drop. You know, maybe you're saying like, oh, 15k armor, that's enough. Dubious. And you just run a mana pool. You could run a mana flask instead. You can drop one of your flasks, run a mana flask, and then you don't have to life tap the skill. You could technically do more damage that way, and you free up some sockets. It's an option, but I value determination too highly, as everyone does every league, because it costs like 20 to 30 alks. So I'm planning around it. We'll revisit this later if I decide otherwise, but I think what I want this build to be able to do is just run around through maps, everything blows up, and I don't have to constantly fear for my life. So we've got big armor, big max res, and we can even stack some chaos res because we have freed up suffix pressure with Tasselio. So that's why we're doing that. And we're not accidentally ticking Tailwind or Adrenaline this time. That's really good. These are just ticked in red. I would leave these in the config if you're going into this PoE, just so you can check the unique, you know, things that you interact with these things, like the Moku's Embrace thing. Just check that so you can check DPS differences. But it doesn't have to matter to you if you don't care that much about that interaction. You see there's an average here for magmatic strikes, just to average out our DPS, but we can measure the max hit by like fudging that for a second and then saying, you know, it does a lot more while it's on than what it says there, right? This is here for the call to arms gem, just to say, you know, we are not using any cast speed with our WARCRIES because if we fudge this, our DPS goes down a bit again. This is to just for onslaught, so we're not like, you know, pretending we have much higher movement speed than we actually have. And this is interesting as well because we can debilitate when we have fast we're not warcrying, we're warcrying like every 3 seconds in the final build, every 3 and a bit seconds. You can get that down even more. This mastery kind of becomes pretty cool because debilitate makes things deal 10% less damage. So a third of the time we take 10% less damage. That's on top of fortify and on top of all our max. You know, we're becoming a tanky boy, and we want to be a tanky boy because we're going to stop and slam, and we're not exactly slamming like super fast. We're slamming fast enough to be comfortable, but it's not crazy. That's important. You know, there's big things like this is what happens if you don't curse stuff as well. Like, you know, make sure you always have flammability active on everything. The base duration of flammability is 8 seconds. I don't know if that goes up at all. With config, let me just double check. You could even look to trying to get duration mod. Yeah. So flammability is only elastic 8 seconds. You really want to keep that on, because it's giving you most of your chance to ignite. So that's one thing to maintain uptime on. One little extra button to press, but yeah, the cast speed of it isn't bad. It's like, yeah, it's fine. You shouldn't have an issue there. Also, it's level 1. Why is it level 1? Oh, this build does way more damage than I was I was nerfing my whole DPS. Why was flammability level 1? There's always something I haven't checked before I start hitting record. Very professional build guide designer. This is what happens when you play Ruthless. Also, we need level 1 combustion. Why is this level 1 as well? Yeah, level 1 combustion is because the imp requirement. Yeah, why was this level 1 though? Because level 20 combustion requires. Oh no, it's fine. We can make this guy deal more fire damage. Doesn't really matter, does it? We just don't really need to life tap this stuff. Although we could, and then see. It's like 20k more DPS. You want one of your life tap gems to have a level requirement of 1 though. Make it like this one. So you trigger life tap very easily. That's 23 life, so you're always gonna have life tap, and that will give you life tap for this for the 9% more damage. Doesn't care what granted the buff. Glad we checked that. I had level. This looks way better now. I mean, let's take off Burr's Girdle because that's like aspirational. Like, look at that. Now, look at the damage. Look, that's way better. And we lost Tawhoa again. He's gone. Where'd he go? There he is. Twice. Look at that. I don't know how long I've had level 1 flammability in this setup. It obviously should be level 20 because that's insanely dumb otherwise. Cool, yeah. That's most of, like, I think what the build is all about. Kind of losing my place again in this kind of ramble, but you've got, in this PoB, you've got your leveling trees, you've got some, like, endgame trees. Play around with stuff. You might realize that, like, you know, maybe the cost of this with a life tap, maybe this is too annoying for you. Like, every 3 seconds you're gonna lose a chunk of life, like, it's like 200 to 300 life, which isn't that much, but it is something to bear in mind. You can toggle call to arms on and off as far as I'm aware as well. Also, the only endgame change that this one really makes, I'm clicking things by accident. So I'm putting on tattoos. We're taking the exposure mastery and running Avatar Fire, but you can always just run Avatar Fire anyway. It's just you might as well just. In fact, Avatar Fire might even be better early. I put this on here, but you might want to take Avatar Fire early anyway because it will convert added damage on your weapon that is not physical or fire to fire damage, which is probably better for you. That's interesting, actually. I didn't even think about that. But cool. There's detailed notes which I will quickly go over before I publish this build again, because it might be an occasional outdated thing in here, given that we're still getting changes announced as I'm doing stuff. Tattoos are a really interesting part of this because you have loads of extra strength you don't need. Just be careful not dropping all your life. There are so many different little iterations. I kept this, I dropped this. This is what I'm happy with in terms of like the amount of life this tree is taking, but you can take more. Yeah. But I think, yes, the main thing about this build, the main takeaway is this is the secret, I think, to making Volcanic Fissure of Snaking work comfortably as a starter, in Ruthless especially. You also want to get 2 of these, not to like dual wield them because you can't do that, but you'll get 1 and just socket like a 4-link in it, and then you will, with the other, you'll work on 5, maybe you can even 6-link one. You want to work on 5-linking 1 so you can get that full Warcry setup in. But obviously you can get the full Warcry setup without life tap if you don't have all your auras, so it's just about like, the pieces need to fit together. One thing's going to start shoving something else, and once you get determination, you want to have all your auras on, you're going to have to start live tapping things. Because of that, you have to start extending this, you know, into a form of 4-link, into a 5-link, better, you know. But it will make sense as you're progressing. Progression on this build, I haven't, obviously, I've done a mapping, I've done a run 2 maps almost, but I haven't mapped with it, like gone through the atlas from like tier 1s upwards. So I don't have experience doing that, but I can't see any reason why it's not going to be comfortable. because you're going to blow up your whole screen. You're going to have the damage to deal with bosses because you have way more damage than you need to deal with act bosses anyway. You'll be fine. And just make sure you always take Flammability for your first Yosa gem. You can take Call to Arms from your second, and that way for the second half of the campaign you have automated Warcries. Obviously if you find that too much of a mana drain or too clunky to work with early on, then you can take Blood Rage earlier. You can also take Consecrated Path here instead. Frenzy charges while mapping is probably going to be better than getting this earlier. You can just grab this off someone else earlier, but you can get it. You can get this instead if you want the you just like the skill more than getting this. Another really big thing for this build, you want a Duelist Mule. I mentioned the leveling trees ages ago, but going back to leveling for a second, it's a thing. You want a Mule, Blood and Sand, and Vitality, because you want a Mule Vitality so that you can take Intimidating Cry when you kill Brutus. And also if you Mule Vitality, you can start using Vitality before you kill Brutus, which makes Brutus even easier, which is cool. I'm not going to go over all these notes because they're all here anyway. Lots of stuff I was thinking about that might be important to mention to people who are looking into stuff. A couple of notes on if you're SSF, but this is not really designed around being SSF, but you can already, if you play SSF, you can already see the things where it's like, well, I'm never going to see that maybe. Cool, then find a workaround. Deal with it, as Mark would say. You've got gear progression, you've got gem progression, you've got some notes on mechanics, WARCRIES, Leech, and how you buff up your max res. That's the build. That's what I'm really excited about this league, and I hope other people give it a try. Loads of people gave the Scion I made a guide for last league a try, and loads of people said they enjoyed it. This is a different kind of character. It is quote-unquote melee, but this is like the furthest thing you can get from playing melee, but you still can say you're melee, which gives you like the cool little badge. It's like, hey, I played melee this league. People are like, wow. But this does not feel like playing melee, aside from the fact you have a big axe, because just everything blows up around you. It's almost like playing fucking Detonate Dead with how like it's homing in on shit. Or Volatile Dead, I guess. Not Volatile Dead is the one I'm thinking of. Yeah, any questions at all, let me know in the comments. Any ideas or improvements that me to jump out at you that I've missed on this build I could make, let me know. Always looking for more feedback, more ways we can buff this up. But otherwise, this sounds like a really smooth league start to me for the purpose of this league. And what I will probably do is make a second character as a bosser if I want to start trying to do the tier 17 maps. They're going to be very hard, I'm sure, or other kind of content involving bosses. I'll probably make a dedicated bosser. There's going to be some broken shit this league. Yeah, you can find some stuff for. They fixed the Sunblast thing already, but you know, fuck that. I lost Tawhoa again. How? Don't know what bean. Okay. So confusing. But yeah, as you can see from the numbers, there isn't too much warrioring going on here. I mean, we can turn off onslaught, frenzy charges again. You're gonna have respectable single target damage on a 5-link for doing pinnacles. Even on a 4-link, I mean, you can take off. Let's say you're Solar Self-Fan, you take off Fortify, you have to run this instead for Fortify, but that's still fine, you know? It's reasonable damage. Oh, good. Okay. Yeah. As I said, any questions, any thoughts, let me know. Anything you think I should add to the notes as well, I can always update that as I go. Also credit to Wolfio for like giving me the template for this build. Some of his like old items are still in here, I think, probably, but I can take them out. No, I think it's all my side. I think I modified everything now. Oh yeah, there's like this and stuff. I always use other people's builds. If you want to make your own build, start with someone else's build and keep fucking with it until it makes more sense. Don't start from scratch. Blank pages are the scariest thing in the world. Start with someone else's shit. It's much easier. Okay, for real this time though. Nothing more to say really. I hope everyone has a really fun league start, and I hope people give this a try or similar things like this a try. Let me know if you have another melee league starter idea. Please, because I I spent a while looking over a lot of things. I made a whole guide. There is a whole guide on here for dual strike of ambidexterity. The leveling was shit though, and they just made the leveling even more shit with the call to arms change, so I'm not playing it. But it's an idea. It's a faster mapper. But again, it's a mapper, so it's not like I need another mapper in my life if I'm going to be playing this. Let me know if you've got any other ideas though, any other big slam ideas, any other uses of the new call to arms stuff with like WARCRIES and shit. Very exciting. Also, by the way, we don't take this because this sucks. It doesn't do anything for us. It's like escalation technically does, but like it's like 4 points for 60% increased damage, which isn't like justifiable really. I mean, it's 50% damage per point with WARCRY duration. It's not that good. It's not good enough. But of course you can take it if you want to. Okay, for real this time. Thank you. Bye.